Well, nearly 70% of the 132 crore Indians live in rural areas. There is rapid urbanization, but rural India remains the heartbeat of the nation and perhaps the deciding factor in its elections. Is the BJP facing a challenge in rural India as it gears up for elections in crucial states? Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this special show. I'm Shireen Bhan, and we're going to take that story forward. The recently concluded civic body elections in the crucial state of Uttar Pradesh, which saw the massive BJP sweep in the assembly elections earlier this year, throws up an interesting trend. In the 1,300 municipal corporations, largely in the urbanized parts of the state, the BJP romped home by winning 46% of the total seats. The opposition left biting the dust. However, in the election for the Nagar Panchayat members, these are largely in rural areas of the state. Independent candidates won 71% of the seats. The BJP managed to win just 12%. I also want to point out that independents dominating Nagar Panchayat elections is not a new trend. However, the sheer scale of their victory did catch the attention of major political parties. Let's now go from Uttar Pradesh to the state of Gujarat. A survey released yesterday by Lokniti and CSDS predicts a cliffhanger of a race with the BJP, edging it out with a narrow majority. Now, the CSDS poll forecasts a photo finish with the Congress coming in a close second. In rural areas, the survey shows that the Congress is in fact leading the BJP. In Saurashtra, North and South Gujarat, the Congress is ahead of the BJP. This according to the Lokniti survey. Not just that, according to the survey, 51% of farmers in the state are backing the Congress and only 40% are backing the BJP. Even among traders, the Congress seems to be marginally ahead of the BJP if one goes by the poll. All of this brings us to the key question on the show. Is the BJP and the government paying enough attention to the agri distress and the pain being faced by small businesses and small traders across the country? Joining us now to discuss this further, Surjit Bhalla, Senior India Analyst at the Observatory Group and member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, Yogendra Yadav, President of Swaraj India, Zafar Islam, spokesperson of the BJP, and Priyanka Chaturvedi, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Before we begin this discussion, CNBC TV18's Archana Shukla travelled the lengths and breadths of Gujarat, especially rural Gujarat, for our election caravan. And here's a quick snapshot of her conversations with farmers and agri-traders as they head to the polling booth in a few days.
जिस दिन ये जीएसटी लगा उस टाइम से अभी तक का रिफंड का उनका क्लेम सब बाकी ही पड़ा है।
जीएसटी की वजह से हमारा एक्सपोर्ट पे 30% का इम्पैक्ट है मैडम, हमारा रिड्यूस हुआ है एक्सपोर्ट 30%।
जीएसटी की वजह से हमारे जो व्यापारियों हैं उनको व्यापार का सेफ्टी प्रदान हुआ है।
मानो ना मानो, इंडिया जैसे देश में किसी पार्टी को पूरी मेजोरिटी से कभी बिठाना नहीं चाहिए,
दूसरे का सपोर्ट लिए होना चाहिए, तो ये ऐसे नहीं लगा सकता था।
आपके पूरा माल जो है वो सरकार नहीं खरीद रही है?
नहीं खरीद रही, आधा ही खरीद रही है अभी।
यहाँ की जो फसल है वो 30 लाख टन होगी, तो उसके बाद जो रहती है 3 लाख टन के बाद वो तो किसान को प्राइवेट में ही बेचना पड़ेगा।
सरकार 9 से खरीद रही, 900 रुपये से खरीद रही है, तो सरकार व्यापारी 700 से क्यों खरीदे? व्यापारी को 800 850 तो बाजार देनी चाहिए ना, सरकार के साथ तो चलना चाहिए ना। सरकार खरीद सकती है तो व्यापारी क्यों नहीं खरीद सकते?
विकास हुआ है?
हाँ, विकास हुआ है।
आप लोग को लगता है यहाँ पे विकास हुआ है?
हाँ, विकास हुआ है। विकास नहीं होगा तो
किसानों भाई मटे नहीं,
किसान का विकास नहीं हुआ?
नहीं, किसान का नहीं। उद्योगपति रोड स्थान ये बनाયું બધું।
वो नहीं सोचता है कि पाटीदार कितना वो हैरान है, वो किसान भी कितना हैरान है, ये मोदी सरकार नहीं सोचती हमारे।
किसान है ना, वो जमीन बिक बिक के सिटी में जाने लगा है, क्यों जाने लगा है?
Well, that's just a smattering of the comments that have come in on our election caravan. Whether this will mean the dissonance that we've seen in some parts of Gujarat, which the Lokniti survey also seems to be showing up, will mean into votes against the BJP is the question, and we'll have answers to that only on the 18th of December. But let me go across now to our guest. And Yogendra Yadav, I want to start with you because you tweeted saying whether you agree or disagree with the CSDS Gujarat survey, it does have a goldmine of information and insights that we must take note of. Given what we saw happen as far as the UP civic elections are concerned and what the CSDS Lokniti survey seemed to suggest about this urban-rural divide, what is the big insight for you?
Absolutely, Shireen, and that's the point. When the UP urban polls came, there was initially a celebration that BJP has swept. Later on, they discovered that there was a difference between the big towns and the small town, and all kinds of conspiracy theories were floated. But the real point, as you rightly pointed out, is the difference between metros and the Mufassil towns. These are not rural areas because these are these are Nagarpalikas, but Mufassil towns have a very rural character. And clearly the difference, when you look at it in terms of seats, the difference looks bigger. In terms of vote, the difference is smaller and more realistic. But the fact remains that BJP does much worse in Mufassil towns than it does in urban areas, which is a shift from what happened in the assembly elections. In Gujarat, the Lokniti survey says that it's a tie, it's a dead heat. My own reading is that they began by recording 30% margin for the BJP in August. In October, it comes down to 6.
Yeah.
Now they are saying 0. Logically, it would become -5 or -6, but forget all that. The important point that comes out from the survey is that while we've all been talking about partidars versus this and Hindu, Muslim, etc., it is, as the Americans call it, it's the economy stupid. I mean, it's economy all over, written in that survey. What comes out is farmers, what is a dead heat between Congress and BJP. The difference between Congress and BJP is 11 percentage points to the disadvantage of BJP among the farmers. Demonetization, the trend has reversed. On GST, there is palpable anger. So it's the real big issues are price, unemployment, and development. So it's all about economy.
Let me take that point across now to Surjit Bhalla. Surjit Bhalla, I want you to put on both your psephologist hat as well as your economist hat and comment on what you just heard there from Yogendra Yadav, that this election, it is squarely going to be about the economy. And how do you see that impacting the result?
You know, I'm glad the Indian psephologists are coming around to the view that it is economy, not caste, not urban, not rural. It is the economy. I have held that for a very, very long time, not only for India, but for other countries, and I hold that for this election as well. So now the question is, when will we know that it is about the economy in terms of, we can't take opinion polls, though they have information. I've used them all the time. And you know, if I now look at the opinion poll, we have to look at what the result will be on December 18th. But looking at the opinion polls for Gujarat, basically you had the 30% margin by the CSDS in August. And then, which is a real outlier. And then you had 3 polls, one by CSDS, one by Times Now, and one by Axis India. And all 3 of them converged around somewhere around 150 to 130 seats for the BJP, and somewhere around 100 or so for the Congress, so between 90 and 100. All 3 of them very close together, done at about the same time. So we now have one survey, which is done very recently, which shows that in the polls it's a dead heat. However, the very same poll shows that the forecast for the seats is still about 15 seats more for the BJP than for the Congress. Not 115, but close to about 100. But the more interesting part of the survey that I found on relating to the economy and what read in the newspaper was the following, that they had broken up the views of the respondents in terms of GST, whether they thought it was good, bad, or ugly, and or good, good, okay, and bad on GST and on demonetization. On both of them, the good and okay added up to 60%, and on bad was 40%. So, you know, the question for me as a social scientist, as a psephologist, as an economist, is to what extent are the answers to these very 2 important questions an indication of which way they're going to vote. So in other words, if I'm for the BJP, I say, okay, GST was good and okay. And if I'm against the BJP, I say it's bad. We don't know. We will find out on the 18th. But I do think, you know, we need to come to grips in India, and there I completely agree with Yogendra Yadav, It is the economy. That's what votes are based on, not on caste and various other things that one can imagine.
Well, that is what we'd like to hope
Can
as
I
well.
say
But
something?
Surjit Bhalla, before I get to my other... Yes, please, go ahead.
I just wanted to say two things. I think Professor Bhalla makes this discussion deeper and more interesting. On whether it's economy all over, all times, everywhere in the world, I think it's a somewhat theological belief. I think we should be open to discovering different factors playing a role in different places. But in this election, it certainly is economy. And for once, Professor Bhalla and I agree, and that's such a lovely feeling. On demonetization and trade, I think the important thing is to remember no matter what the levels are today, the crucial thing is to see the difference over the last 3 months. I have the figures in front of me. 3 months ago, 55% said demonetization was good and only 19% said it was bad. And last week, only 34% said it was good and 42% said it was bad. On GST, in August, 38% say it was good, 25% said it was bad, and last week only 22% say it was good and 43% say it was bad. So I'm interested in movement, and there is clearly movement which is negative, and that's a larger question we are discussing, which is the economy taking a turn which is becoming very difficult for this regime to manage?
Fair point, but let me very quickly, before I get the two party spokespeople in on the conversation, come back to you, Surjit Bhalla. Forget about the numbers and forget about what the Lok Niti CSDS poll shows up in terms of projections for the state of Gujarat. Let's talk about agriculture. And this is an issue that we've been discussing, and I've discussed this with you in the past also. Is there an underappreciation of the distress that's been faced in the agriculture sector? Today, as part of the pre-budget meetings, there was a consultation with farmers, there was a consultation with the Consortium of Indian Farmers Association. Their plea continues to be that all is not well with the agriculture sector. Their plea continues to be that, look, not enough has been done to help us out. Yes, individual governments have announced loan waivers, whether it's UP or Maharashtra, but there are concerns with respect to MSP. There are concerns with respect to the promise that the government had made about doubling farmer incomes. So, Surjit Bhalla, from a policy point of view, do you believe that there has perhaps been an underappreciation of the distress being faced by the agriculture sector?
You know, I wouldn't say from the policy point of view, because I'm not making policy, but I would point out the following. And agriculture is a subject that I have been quite interested in and worked on for a long, long time. For the last 3 years, you know, we had droughts the first 2 years, and constantly agriculture was in the news about the distress. What I found very interesting last year, when we had a bumper crop, agriculture grew by 4.7%, rainfall was good, etc. We had the same discussion, suicides, distress, etc. So I'm just wondering to what extent, and you know, we've seen, and really this is an analytical study that I'm engaged in, other people have looked at, that just before important elections in India, you do have a spike up of all the concerns in the world. And to what extent is that politics that's driving it? We should discuss all of them. I have no objection to politics driving the discussion. It's very healthy. But at the same time, as analysts, we should recognize to separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will, and recognize the politics and separate it from the economics. And, you know, this year, everybody was expecting agriculture to grow about 2-3%. Because last year was a very good year, that's what it is growing at. Economically and policy-wise, I don't know what one could have done differently. You know,
I can see Yogendra is shaking his head vigorously in disagreement. You started the show with agreeing on something, but he's shaking his head vigorously in disagreement. I'll come to you in just a second, Yogendra. But let me go across to Zafar Islam now. Zafar, the question that I started by asking my panel on the program, is there a problem, is there a concern for the BJP when it comes to voters in rural constituencies, in, as Yogendra Yadav pointed out, in Mufassil India?
Shireen, we were confident, and our confidence is growing as we are getting closer to the D-date. So there is absolutely no concern as far as Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned, because we know the ground realities. We have our internal sources which is providing the information from the ground, and we have, as you know, that the Bharatiya Janata Party is a party which is cadre based. We have workers all over every nook and corner. We have people who are actually working for the party and
so what is their latest forecast? What is the BJP's latest forecast?
Well, our honorable party president has very clearly and categorically has maintained, has said that we will cross 150 in this election, and that's what we are aiming at. And as we are getting closer to the election polling date, we are growing, our confidence are growing only. Let me tell you also that in terms of whatever the yesterday's CDS suggesting, that well, they are suggesting something which we do not agree with that, because we know that ground reality is very different, and we are very confident that we will cross 150 this time, and we will be around 150, purely because the kind of work we have done over the last 22 years, and which will pay rich dividend, and in terms of rural infrastructure, the amount of work we have done in last several years is something which other people are talking that there is a distress in rural area, but actually there is no distress. There are some people who have some concern. I'm sure that every election when you go, you also have a set of people they will voice against the party, and you will have majority of people who will vote for you.
You're saying all is well. Priyanka Chaturvedi, let me get you to comment on that. Zafar Islam saying all is well, there's absolutely no concern. Surjit Bhalla also seems to suggest that a lot of these issues are drummed up around election time. Politics does drive the argument, not necessarily economics. Yogendra Yadav doesn't quite necessarily agree, but what's the Congress's take? I mean, is there now a sense of confidence creeping into the Congress party in light of what we've seen with the latest survey result?
No, I wouldn't want to comment on the surveys. However, I would like to comment on the assertion that is being made by the Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson. If as per them everything is hunky-dory, rosy and good, then I don't understand why all their ministers and the Prime Minister is busy campaigning in Gujarat. Why they don't have answers to the questions that Mr. Gandhi has been raising almost on a daily basis.
It is an election and everyone has to prove
what are they diverting the attention to? They are diverting the attention. Sir, I do not talk when you're talking. I do not know why you interrupt every time I talk. This is so ridiculous. Have some decency when you talk.
Priyanka.
And when you come on panel discussions.
Go ahead,
Sireen,
go
I
ahead.
would request you to give me my time.
You're asking me.
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead. No, please go ahead. Please go ahead. We're having a civilized conversation. Priyanka, go ahead.
No, he can take my time too. You know, this is the reason why I don't like engaging with people who do not know when to speak. I have been listening patiently to everybody. So I would just like to comment on a few things. Mr. Surjit Bhalla was saying politics is played around and there's a spike in this kind of discussion around the farmers, suicides, etc. He treats it very casually. I would request Mr. Bhalla to come out of Delhi and come to Gujarat today, go to the Kutch region, see the problems that the farmers are talking about. Today, Gujarat, the farmers have come on the streets, have been protesting. Demonetization has hit the rural areas pretty hard. Their entire, the produce that they needed to sell could not be sold because the 500s and 1,000 rupee notes were demonetized. In fact, the daily wage that they get, the daily income that Gujarat farmer gets is way lower than the national average. So what are we even discussing right now? I would request the Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson and Mr. Surjit Bhalla to come and do a reality check. So if everything is rosy, everything is good, then surveys after surveys wouldn't suggest that rural areas are unhappy. And even if we talk about the GST, if we talk about various other issues, I just like to bring to the focus something that Mr. Bhalla said, that politics is played around farmers' issues. I would want to remind him about the 2014 speech that Mr. Modi had made, where he said the minimum support price would be increased by 50%. And it was this very same government which went to the Supreme Court saying that it is not possible to do so. I would want to go back to Mr. Bhalla's argument where he said that politics is played around it. Mr. Modi in Porbandar, in his speech during his campaigning in 2014, had said all these prices for the farmers are being decided from AC rooms in Delhi by bureaucrats who sit in AC rooms in Delhi, by politicians who do not step out and understand what the rural issues are. And when I am elected, I will ensure that the prices are doubled for cotton as well as groundnut. Now, please come back to Gujarat, Mr. Modi, and you must answer to these people in Porbandar who you very confidently promised to. You have crushed the entire ceramic industry. You've crushed the textile industry. You've crushed the farmers of Gujarat. And the last point. When you talk about it being about economics, absolutely it is about economics. The entire agitation that you see happening in on ground in Gujarat has to happen because of the economics here, because many people have been left out of the economic opportunities because of the flawed policies of the Gujarat government in the past 22 years. And that is why you see a societal unrest, and that is why these people are out there on the streets protesting. It is everything revolves around the economy, everything revolves around the job creation, everything revolves around the policies that you make. And that is why you see the unrest that you see in Gujarat.
Everything revolves. Okay, I'll take all of your points across to Surjit Bhalla, but let me bring in Yogendra Yadav. Yogendra Yadav, it is a fact, as Surjit Bhalla pointed out, that yes, there is a certain degree of politics that creeps into the discourse during election time, but let's also be clear that there is real distress, and this is not new. We have been talking about this, at least on our program on this channel, for a while now. But Yogendra, you know, just to take the points forward, before I get Surjit Bhalla to comment, how significant is this agrarian distress you feel likely to weigh on the elections, whether it is the Gujarat elections now or the upcoming state elections?
I think I agree with Professor Bhalla when he says just before election there is a little greater focus on any kind of distress, any kind of problem, as it is bound to be the case all over the world in democracy. That's what democracy is all about. But to imply that therefore agrarian crisis is someone's figment of imagination or it's a politics being played out, before he comes to that conclusion, I would just draw his attention to the following. Number one, agrarian crisis and rural distress are not words invented by people like me. They are very much in policy discourse. That farmers have, what happened in Gujarat, yes, 2 years of drought, but please also add very poor drought relief in Gujarat. In fact, refusal of Gujarat government to admit, for which the Supreme Court chided it thrice, to even admit that there was a drought in Gujarat. And then what happened in the third year, which confounds Professor Bhalla, I'm surprised that it does, because what happened in the third year was, yes, they had a bumper crop, and they did not get prices. An economist like Mr. Bhalla would simply need to study, sir, please pick up top 100 mandis for Mungfali, for moong, for cotton, for every single crop, and I can tell you the results. The results are not in a single crop are the farmers getting anything close to MSP. That could well be the reason. Let us look at the subjective factors. Before the BJP spokesperson concludes that no such thing exists, can I invite him to please read what Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, which is an RSS affiliate, has been saying. They are saying rural distress, they are saying agriculture in crisis, they are saying please attend to farmers. So it's not just me. And please also look at all the surveys, all the reports coming from the ground, which systematically point out huge rural unease. Please, it is not someone's figment of imagination. There is something real out there. Let's try and address it. And when people hear...
Surjit Bhalla, let's...
Sure.
Let me go to Surjit Bhalla. Surjit Bhalla, let's address that and forget for a moment this business of, polls and seats and so on and so forth. There is a problem. The problem requires redressal. In terms of imperatives now, what should the government focus on? The Finance Minister also making it clear that Budget 2018 is going to focus on rural India and it's going to focus on infrastructure. So if I may ask you, sir, in light of what we've heard, in light of the current context, what do you believe are the policy imperatives?
Look, I think the policy imperative always should be the maximization of growth, and we should put in place policies that maximize growth. Growth does not benefit all people equally. That is where taxation and redistribution policy comes in, and government should try and cater or address the redistribution part separately from the growth part.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for 70 years or close thereabouts, we have commingled the two, not looked at it separately. And you're asking me what the governments, not only in India, but I think elsewhere should do. That should be the guiding principle of policy making. Maximize growth. And as you know, we've discussed as to how various instruments of government are not maximizing growth or do not seem to be maximizing growth. So let us first try and maximize growth. And then simultaneously, before somebody misconstrues me or misinterprets me or misquotes me, simultaneously address the distribution problem for those that are negatively affected by whatever growth process is taking place, whether it is drought, whether it is slow growth, etc. Let us not, so I'll give you a final one, do not intervene the MSP process. And I'm very pleased that somebody pointed out, I disagree with the RSS wing on absolutely. They have their economic policies, in my view, and I've studied this and written about this, are no different than that of the Communist Party and no different than that of the UPA. So it is not a surprise that I would disagree with what they are saying. So it doesn't mean that what they are saying is right. What it does mean is that government should concentrate on maximizing growth, especially in this ultra-competitive world that we are living in, and simultaneously, again emphasize, address distribution problems.
Okay, fair point. Don't commingle distribution problems with growth. Maximize growth. That should be the priority and the focus area. I'll give the two politicians the final words. And Priyanka, let me start by asking you, we've seen the Gujarat manifesto that the Congress party has put out. The UPA came to be symbolic with the politics of entitlement. The question now is that, is the new Congress party under Rahul Gandhi going to maximize the economics of growth as opposed to the economics of entitlement?
No, absolutely. We will be having a well-balanced agenda like we've been having all along. As much as the NDA might slam our policies, unfortunately or fortunately for them, they have lived by those policies and all the policy initiatives that they have taken, whether it is with regards to demonetization of the flawed GST that they have brought into the process, into the system, has been totally disastrous for them. So our policy and our method of growth in terms of economy would be a well-balanced approach, will not be on the basis of, letting the industrialists go scot-free while our farmers end up paying a lot more compensation than due from them.
Okay, final word to you, Zafar Islam. Do you believe that the focus is now going to be much more on trying to address the concerns that have been raised by farmers, by traders? I mean, today we're talking about a situation where the former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha has been detained as he's protesting for farmers' issues. Things like that. I mean, that really seems like a self-inflicted goal, doesn't it?
Well,
are you going to change the optics around the conversation when dealing with agriculture and farmers?
No, Shireen, before every election, be it Uttar Pradesh or you have seen in any other parts of the state wherever the elections are held, the Congress party has made this kind of allegation everywhere. And you have seen the result also, because we know the ground realities. Yes, there are some concerns. We do not deny that there are no concerns. There are concerns. It has to be there, but the way they are exaggerating is not the magnitude, the way they are stating it. And we are trying to address all the concerns they have, and we are confident that the results will show that the people were with us and not with the Congress party, even though some of the surveys suggest that they are closer to us.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Zafar Islam, Priyanka Chaturvedi, Yogendra Yadav and Surjit Bhalla, thank you very much for joining us on this discussion on how we can address some of the real challenges that the agriculture sector, that the traders and the SMEs are facing in this country, and whether or not these concerns will have a bearing on the upcoming state elections. From all of us here on the program, thanks very much for watching.